Welcome to Literally Books, the podcast where we read literally anything because it shouldn't be a saga to find your next favorite read. My name is Magda.
And I'm Lindsay.
And today we're going to be talking about Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. Get ready for some paradox, get ready for some hell, get ready for some grad students. It's going to be fun.
The best version of hell I could possibly imagine. My love, light of my life, R.F. Kuang.
It is quite a cushy hell for sure.
It really is a cushy hell.
But before we get started, Lindsay, what have you been reading?
Okay, I'm a little bit late to this train, but I picked this up completely randomly. I've been like, when I can't figure out what I want to listen to, letting my husband pick the book based solely on the cover. And so he picked Automatic Noodle, which I did a review for like a few weeks ago, and I like really enjoyed that. It was weird and like sci-fi and kind of, speculative fiction. And he picked Bunny by Mona Awad. Have you heard of this?
Yes, it's been all over my algorithm and like she's been showing up in all over my like authors recommended. Like, what do you think?
Okay, so this is I'm reading the first book. We Love You, Bunny just came out, which is like a prequel / second book. I am obsessed with it. It is so weird. I'm a little over halfway. It is like surreal. Like I can't tell what's real and what's not real. It's like sort of a Heathers, like it's about a young woman who is a poetry grad student, and she's surrounded by these women who are like kind of perfect and in this clique, and they call each other Bunny. That's where Bunny comes from, and they're kind of like trying to get her to be a part of this clique, but there's something really devious going on, and it's like hard to tell. It's like I don't know what to say other than like I'm enjoying it and it's so weird.
Ooh, and it's given me, as soon as you said like they call each other Bunny, I'm like, ooh, that sounds kind of Mean Girl, but I'm guessing those are the vibes of the book.
You know, it's so weird too. Like I used to do this all the time when I was younger, where I was like, I would use what I call the bunny voice, like before I even knew this book existed. Just saying. No, but like before this book even existed, when I was trying to be like intone an annoying girl, I'd be like, oh, it's Bunny. My name is Bunny. I'm Bunny. And that's totally the vibe that these women are giving. Like, I have a silly little boy. I'm a silly little girl. I'm a silly little bunny. Anyway, it's weird.
Okay, good to know. Okay, I'm excited. I'm excited for you to finish reading it and let me know what you think, because
you
this
need
is
to start
one
it,
in my
I want to talk to you about it. You need to read it. Okay. What are you reading?
So I did finish listening to this book called Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. She also wrote my Oxford year, I think.
Yes.
And she's like a pretty famous like audiobook narrator as well. And then she's kind of dabble also as a writer, but not dabble, like she's a pretty successful author at this point.
Dabbled at being a super successful writer with an adapted television show based on her book.
Yeah, no big deal. But I really enjoyed it. So it does tell you like the story about like this audiobook narrators, and it tells you a little bit of behind the scenes from her perspective. Like even in her author's notes towards the end of the book, she does say like, hey, this is just my experience from what I have gone through. And it's kind of fun because it details like exactly what we're seeing currently in the book community, which is like these big fandoms of how people become obsessed with some of these audiobook narrators, and they create like these big fantasies around them. They have like big conventions and people are just like mega obsessed with them. How a lot of them come into this space coming from like theater, art, just didn't make it as actors or whatever reason, and this just kind of led them down the path of being audiobook narrators. In this case, for our main protagonist, it's after an accident. Like she was on the brink of becoming like a really successful actress, and she had like a pretty bad accident that just kind of deteriorates her like self-esteem and everything, and she just kind of starts dabbling into the audiobook space, and she becomes a really successful romance audiobook narrator. And the reason why I love this book, because it talks a lot about like the connotations that we have for romance books, and like how people are like, some people are like, oh, it's just like a little smutty little book and things like that. And she starts falling into this also believing in this particular narrative, and she wants out of that, and she starts narrating like what is considered more serious. So you start seeing the cliques of the people that do like historical fictions and biographies and this and that, and it's a little bit of a romance book in itself, a little bit of a background story about the audiobook world. It was just so fun. I really enjoyed it. We see a lot of character growth for our protagonists here. It was just really fun to see. And it also kind of touches a little bit on the AI world and how scary that is for a lot of the audiobook narrators that are coming up. Like, we're getting really close to a space where a lot of big companies might potentially just be using AI, and what's going to happen to this art. So there's a little bit of those like tones on there, and I really enjoyed it because it's a fun, easy read, but the undertones of it kind of touches on very serious issues that is impacting the book community, but it gives you a little bit of like romance vibes. It gives you a little bit of background story, character growth. It's just a fun read. I totally recommend it. It's just a fun. I did the audiobook, which I think it kind of tracks well with this book.
You know what's funny is like we've talked about this before, and tropes that you like, I think we both really like them, are books about writers. We love a book about a writer. We loved Yellowface. We loved Book Lover. Well, I didn't love Book Lovers, but we talked about Book Lovers. Beach read. Like, I love it. Yeah. A book
I
about
love
a writer.
it. I think I just love to get a little bit, even if it's a fictional space, I know that a lot of that is being drawn from real life experiences for a lot of these authors. So it's kind of fun to be able to see a little bit behind the curtains for them of what they're going through. And I love that. Listen, I am a chismosa. I love a good gossip. So if I'm getting to hear or listen a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes, trashing some of the publishers or whatever, like I'm here for it. Like I'm like just here drinking my tea.
And it's good for your mental health. They literally did scientific studies that it's good for your mental health. So we're out here looking out for you all.
Exactly.
And your mental health.
Also a really big theme in this book, by the way. So yeah, it's a really good one. I really enjoyed it.
All right, should we take a little break?
Let's do it. Welcome back, everybody. So now we're going to start chatting about Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. Although I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly, but she gave us permission to pronounce it however we want to.
Katabasis, Katabasis.
Yeah, whatever we want to do it. Just a quick heads up, this episode does contain a lot of spoilers. So if you have not read the book, just go mute it, and then just come back to this episode whenever you're ready. Now, Lindsay, before we get started, do we want to do a little synopsis?
We're going to try. Okay. Alice Law is going to hell.
After the untimely death of Professor Jacob Grimes, Alice's advisor for her dissertation on analytic magic at Cambridge, Alice decides she must rescue his soul from hell in order to preserve her hopes of completing her doctoral degree and landing a coveted position as professor of magic.
Her classmate and primary academic rival, Peter Murdoch, agrees to go with her. Peter is a logician and mathematics whiz, while Alice is a master of languages and linguistics. Their complementary skills help them navigate the 8 courts of hell: pride, desire, greed, wrath, violence, cruelty, tyranny, and an unnamed 8th court, which is the domain of Lord Yama, aka Hades, aka King of the Dead.
Using pentagrams, chalk, and magic powder by logical fallacies, the duo try to save their professor without losing themselves. Great summary, Lindsay. This is a really good one because I don't even know how we would even start this. So thank you for doing that.
There's a lot going on in this book. Like, it's tough because we always talk about like, oh, this book contains spoilers and blah, blah, blah. It does in that like we're talking about our thoughts on things and we're talking about plot points, but like this isn't really a book where the plot is the reason that you read it.
Yes. I completely agree about that.
I think you would struggle to even, I mean, we struggled. These are super high level plot points. Like it would be very difficult to even get through those.
Yeah, I completely agree.
High level though, I've been dying to talk to you about this because like R.F. Kuang is one of my favorite authors right now. I love Yellowface. I loved The Poppy War. I loved Babel, however you want to say it. What did you think of it?
I liked it.
Okay. That was a truly neutral face you were making just then. Okay, tell me more.
There is something interesting about this. I've only read Yellowface from her. I haven't read Babel and like any of the other popular books that she has written. This is not, it felt to me, not a very, very character-driven story. I didn't find a lot of character development. It gets really into the weeds of hell and how hell represents the academia world. So to me, it reads that this book is for a very particular set of population that can relate to the academia world. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun, but it's not the way that I would depict hell, for instance. And they could just be differently. I thought the story was really, it was good. I think the premise is so interesting. It's pretty much like a retelling of Dante's Inferno from an academic perspective. So it's really great in that sense. But I didn't find that I connected to the characters very much.
She has an interesting style of writing in that way when it comes to characters that I personally really like, but I think is very much like you either really like this or you don't, which is that you don't get a lot of like interiority into the characters' brains. They don't think about their feelings. She doesn't write about what they're feeling at any given moment. She gives you actions that they take that indicate maybe they're feeling something, but you're not going to get a long explanation of like, this person felt anxiety over something, or they felt they were like, there's a love story in this. And like, you don't get a lot of like overt descriptions of love. I personally really like that because I feel like as a person, that's how I am, where I'm like, I don't want to talk forever about my own feelings. And so I get that, but it does make it's harder to connect with them. You really have to dig.
Yeah, I can't tell you a single character that I was just, like, I just feel drawn to in this book. Like, not a single one.
Wow.
Outside of Archimedes the cat. That's it.
That's
like,
interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't connect to any of the character. I mean, I appreciated their journey and what they were going to, but it read like a dissertation. And I think maybe that's the point of this. It read like a very matter-of-fact book to me, like almost like a text at times.
Okay.
And maybe I think that's the point, though. I think that's the point of this book. I think it's a discussion around what it means to be in academia and how it takes over all of your senses, how you describe everything, how it just kind of takes over your life. And I think that's what this book does a really good job at it. I think that's what it's trying to do. So I think it was really successful at doing that.
Okay.
But, and you know, I kind of, like with Yellowface, I felt like she did a really good job in there because I could kind of see the motivation behind that character. And I think coming from that to this, it wasn't, it's just a different genre. I think it's a different genre.
It's definitely more like
very
Babel.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you? How did this hold up to your expectations?
It might be my favorite book.
Really? Okay, good. I'm so happy for you.
I agree with you. I will say I agree with you 1000% in that, like, it is very much focused on academia and like a very specific person's perspective of academia. Like, you have to be in higher education in an elite category, which I did not go to an elite college. But I don't know. I did relate a lot to Alice of like being the kind of person who is like singularly focused on a goal to her own detriment and like totally unable to see what's going on around her at any given moment. And being like, why don't you just like not do this thing? Like, Alice literally goes to hell. She gives up half of her remaining lifespan to go save her professor, who we come to find out she hates, merely because it's so unbelievable to her to just find a different advisor. Mm-hmm. And like, I do think there is something about myself where like I am that way, where I like have a hard time navigating like an alternate path, working with me. Like, if I have something in my mind, I'm like, no, but it has to be that way. Like, I don't know. I related to that.
I can see that. It is a very, I think what you mentioned, it's very singular oriented people. And then this is like, it has to be done this way. And maybe for me, that's why I was just like,
you're a lot more like
but flexible. I mean, again, I think it just kind of goes back to the academia world where like they just are so in the weeds. This is the one goal that they've been working towards the entire life, that like if you just gonna change something, it just destroys. It's just like a little house of cards. It destroys their entire life plan. So I completely get that. But I did enjoy the story. I think that my expectations of what I was coming into, the type of hell experience that I wanted to see. And that's just me. I think I had these expectations, and the hell that was described was not the one that I was anticipating.
Can we talk about the description of hell? Because I mean, like you said, the hell is very different. It's very much in Alice's mind's eye, hell is built like a campus, and they like make references to that. And we can talk about that in a second. But I think that for me was the thing that I struggled with a little bit. Like, it works for the structure of the story, you know, like to have each of the rings of hell remind Alice of some element of her academic life. But I was thinking, like, then the idea of privilege carries on so heavily into hell, because as I was reading this, I'm like, man, hell seems like better than many parts of my living life at any given moment. And so if you take the idea that like hell looks different based on different people's like experience, then people who had a shitty experience are going to have a worse version of hell. And I think that's the part of the book that I struggle with the most, because I'm like, wow, that's such a crappy premise to work from. I don't know.
But you know, we're going to sustain the disbelief. I mean, or like hold the disbelief and kind of keep it going. But I kind of agree with you. I don't... It was just kind of interesting. So it makes me wonder, to your point, how is my hell going to look like? So I think I was thinking more like a Dante's Inferno type of style, which she does reference Dante here quite a bit. She also references Jorge Luis Borges quite a bit, who like writes a lot about, you know, Inferno, and, you know, a lot of short stories and essays
Labyrinth
around.
is a lot about this. I love Borges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting to kind of like, she makes a lot of references to those type of stories and writers, but I don't think I found a lot of similarities between like the way that they were depicting it, outside of like different levels of potentially like the different stages of hell, but did nothing else kind of matched up, in my opinion. So, but it's cool. I think it's like a different retelling, and I think she's really open into that, where like she's just, I want to be able to retell things that haven't been written, and this is the way that she would experience it potentially, or like how she would imagine it.
Yeah, 1000%. Like, I don't think that it's necessarily R.F. Kuang's job to define a hell that would apply to everyone. Like, that's not that interesting to me, and it would make for a really difficult and boring book. It's just the one thing in the book, the premise of the book, that I'm like struggled with a little bit, because I'm like, that just seems really unfair. But I loved the way that she wrote the way someone in academia would experience hell. So like, she talks about sins of incontinence versus sins of malice, which is like, some sins are like ones where you're kind of internally harming yourself, but they're not really harming anyone else, like pride or greed, versus like cruelty and tyranny. And so in Pride, one of the things they have to do, I think she says Pride was a library. And like, that's one of the first courts. And they basically have to spend their time researching the good and writing a paper on what the good is in order to pass on. There's always in each one of these courts of hell, like some kind of test that allows you to get out of hell and pass over the river Lethe into somewhere beyond. And so like, in that way, I think it worked really well, because I just thought that was like a really interesting philosophical thought. When you had unlimited resources, like how would you write a paper? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of fun. I really loved her explanation of pride and desire, and also I think it was the eighth city as well. Diz, yeah. I really appreciated her description on it, because she spent really good time describing what was going on. I think we just kind of rushed over the other ones though. Like, we kind of like walked a little bit through tyranny. We walked a little bit through what was some of the other ones? I forget. But
wrath, cruelty.
Yeah, but like, we just kind of like brushed over it, and I think that was my. One of the things that I wish the pacing of the book could have been a little bit different, because I wanted to spend a little bit more time learning about the other like stages. And we just kind of like, and I just walked through tyranny, and I just felt like people were watching me, and that's it. Like that was it. So I wish we could have spent a little bit more time. Granted, like, it didn't have to be anything like spending 2 or 3 chapters on it, but maybe getting a little bit more of an in-depth look as to what's going on, instead of just kind of rushing through it. And I wish the pacing on that was a little different.
It is interesting, because I think when I like thought about the way that we were going to do this episode while I was reading it, I thought like, it's going to have such a like linear structure as they're moving from one court to the next court to the next court, and we're going to be able to orient ourselves in space. And maybe this is intentional, because Alice doesn't really know how the map of hell works either. Like, they have drawings at the front of the book that are supposed to give you some idea, but like, I often found as I was reading it that I wasn't quite sure which court we were in, or where we were going, or how long she had spent in one court or another. And maybe that was intentional, or maybe it wasn't, but I think it does lead to this like difficulty in pacing, because you don't really know what to expect next because you don't know where she is or where she's going.
Yes. I 100% believe this is intentional. This book is about a postgraduate or a PhD candidate student. And I think she is writing on behalf of like, they think they have a plan figured out and then things are going to happen and it's just going to take you off track or it's going to bypass some things or you're going to get stuck in other things. So I think it's absolutely intentional. I think the way that I'm reading this book is this trying to put myself in the life of a PhD student, which I am not a higher education person, but I mean, like
you are, PhD. You have a master's degree. She literally is. Don't let her say that.
But you know what I mean? Like not like a PhD or a postdoctorate degree. So I wouldn't, but I have had friends, you know, like I had friends that are doing research currently at UCLA and they have left academia because of how shitty it is. So I kind of understand and get it why she's doing this. So everything that I think she does in this book is very intentional with that person's lived-in experience.
That is such a smart way to think about it because it was sort of like what we were talking about earlier, which is like Alice is thinking she's going to bring her little rucksack with her lembas bread, which lembas bread is this like special kind of cracker that offers a lot of nutrition, but it's super quick to eat. And her little eternally filling flask. And she's just going to be able to walk her way with no issue as long as she's willing to work hard and research. Like that's definitely how she goes into hell. And you're like so right that like part of this is like you being confused and being like, it's not that easy. You don't get to just move from one to the next. Like shit keeps coming up that draws her off path or that she takes more time than she thinks it's going to be. Like I didn't think about that, but you're 100% right.
Oh, yay, thank you.
Magda, our literary critic over here. But like I didn't connect that, but you're like, yeah, I mean, of course that's why. Like it's supposed to make Alice frustrated, make you frustrated because you're like, wait a second, we had a plan here. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 6, 8, 7. Yeah.
So yeah, like the pacing is weird. So for me, I mean, it's weird, but I get it. I understand why she had to do that. But just kind of jumping, like, was there a favorite part or quote that you loved in this book?
Okay.
That resonated with you?
I mean, there's a lot, and I want to talk about Alice, but there's one quote I think that really, like, for me surfaced as something that I was like, this is for me why I'm so emotionally connected to this book that is not emotional at all. And it's when Alice is talking about like why she's so drawn to the study of magic. And she says, when it all came down to it, magic was a wish, a prayer, and a little anchoring fiction. So was personhood for that matter. So was coherent subjectivity. And so was the courage to get up every morning and not plan to die.
I love that.
And I think, yeah, I mean, this for me at the core is a book about depression and everything that Alice does is from someone who is deeply depressed. And so I don't know. I think that's why I related to her. That sounds so dark. But like that I think is like a good way of being like, it's not just the dissertation. It's like it's Alice needing a reason, you know?
I agree. I think the way that she needs that type of structure in her life.
Yes.
And I think that's what the dissertation offered her, that it just allowed her to kind of see the next step over and over again. That the minute that something went wrong, she just started considering very dark thoughts in her mind.
Yeah, there was a point in the book where she's talking about like how when she was working, she'd always have something playing in the background, TV, audio, whatever. And that quote in the book was like so deeply relatable to me because she was like, if I don't have something going, I'm just thinking about how stressed and miserable I am. And like, I think we all do that,
Yes.
where we like have our little audiobooks going or whatever. Like silence is really difficult to navigate. And I just like felt that was such a good description of what someone who is depressed or lost or whatever does, you know?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think for me, my favorite part, honestly, it's the magic system, which I think is kind of why you talked about it here.
Really? Tell me more about it. Okay.
The magic system in here is something that you're not born with. You study and you put your effort in, and you're not going to be specializing on the different types. Like you're going to pick you're going to be specializing in like either it's linguistics or you're going to be specializing on logic or math. And there's different specializations of it. And it just made it seem like knowledge is power. Like the more you know and the more that you can kind of learn and do things, that's going to be your power. And I just kind of love that, the way that I think it's intentional. Like it is something that truly anybody can potentially do in this world. You just have to be able to put in your time and effort, and you too can become this magician. And I love that level of equity that is being offered in a way, right? Like if you're able to like put in your time, you are going to become this powerful person. And in your subject of study, you're not going to become like this powerful being that is going to master all of the magic, but like you can be that person for linguistics, or you can be that person in logic, or you can be that person, which I thought that was kind of fun, and it makes it a little bit more achievable, I think.
Oh man, Magda, I was going to say I didn't really like the magic system, but I'm like, maybe I did. That's such a good point. Do you want to explain like how the magic works a little bit?
Yeah, so the magic is pretty much based on paradoxes. So like pretty much it's all about being able to create math problems or like word problems, and just being able to kind of like throw that magic at the other person. And they throw pentagrams and everything with this type of logics and fallacies. And the other person, the way that they combat it is by being able to break down that paradox. So if you don't know how to stop that, then you pretty much lose, or you get impacted by that magic. And I think that that's kind of beautiful.
I think it's incredible to be like, oh, it's the thing that shouldn't make sense, but you can make an argument for. That is magic. To be like, oh, this thing shouldn't work, but it does work in ways. And I think one of the ones that I remember most fully is, I think it's Sorites or Sorites, where they basically are saying like, if you take a heap of sand in your hand and you remove 1 grain of sand, it's still a heap. And like, at what point do you remove enough grains of sand for it no longer to be a heap? And like that paradox of being like, you can remove 1,000 or 1,000,000 or whatever and still have a heap, but at some point it becomes not a heap. And like, what is the definition of that? I just was like, holy shit, I've never thought about that before.
It's pretty cool. I think that was one of the things that I really truly enjoyed in this book, is the crazy paradoxes that are in here and how they can be combated with like, you know, high level of calculus and this and that.
Yes.
Like the one that stuck with me is when Alice, at some point in this book, she's fighting these like bone creatures, and she throws at them this paradox. I forget the name of it, but it's the one that you're limitlessly, or like ultimately you're just cutting the distance in half. And if you keep doing over and over and over again, it kind of puts the creature at a standstill, because you're cutting each of the distances half at a time. And I thought that is really interesting. And the way that she describes it, like this is actually like a really easy paradox, because if you have a basic understanding of calculus, you can fight it off. But these are like dumb little creatures, so they're not going to know. So they're just going to be frozen in time, because their time distance keeps being cut in half. So I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, and the bone creatures, just for background, they're kind of hunting Alice throughout this book, because there are these 2 married magicians that at one point Alice really looked up to, the Kripkes, who essentially are sort of not respected in the academic community, but are making a lot of really interesting research and like ideas come to fruition. And they essentially, before Alice ever gets to hell, kill themselves. And we find out they kill their son too, so that they can explore hell and magic. And in that time, they've become inhuman, and they've built these weird little dog things that are chasing Alice, because in order for them to do magic in hell, they need her blood. And so that's just the background of like sort of the stakes that are going on as Alice is moving through, because even though she's trying to find her professor, she's also trying to fight off the Kripkes.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's it. I really love that storyline, honestly, the Kripke storyline.
Tell me why.
I just thought they put the stakes of this a lot higher.
Yeah, they did.
I think it just kind of like erased the stakes on this, and I think it brought like a level. Without them, I don't think the book would have been as interesting.
1,000%.
So I think that was needed. And their background story was pretty fascinating, because they're also kind of coming from a level of, they're wanting the respect from the academia world, and they're not able to get it. So they're willing to go to these extremes to be able to kind of get the glory of it. And ultimately, that's the goal of a lot of these academia people, is trying to get the name recognition and staying relevant, making sure that you're the one that opens the doors for everything and everything around you. And I think that's what the Kripkes were trying to do, and it just kind of didn't work out on
to the degree that they would kill their child on stage for the purpose of this. I think they're an interesting sort of counterpoint, I guess, to Grimes too, because The Kripkes are not respected that much in academia because they basically pursued fame. And even though Alice is very invested in the academic side of magic, she loved them. She like thought they were so interesting and, you know, doing really interesting things and went to go see them. And then she also has a great respect for Jacob Grimes because he's so lauded like in his academic community. And it's interesting to me throughout the book that we realize like neither Jacob Grimes nor the Kripkes really end up in a great spot. And I think one of the things that we see that Alice realized over time is like there's no path in this world where you have a singular goal that ends somewhere good.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Oh, I can't add anything else to that. That was perfectly, that was beautifully summarized.
It's very hard. This book is very hard because there just is so much going on. I don't know. Was there a character? I know you said you didn't relate that much with Alice, but like there are a lot of other side characters in the book. We have Elsbeth, who was one of Grimes's former advisees, who kills herself. We have Peter, who is like really the opposite of Alice in a lot of ways. Like, is there anyone in the book that you feel like, oh, I'm glad that, or at least even if you didn't relate to them, that you're like, oh, I like attached to this character?
I think Gratis, I think is his name.
Oh, Gratis, yeah.
Gratis. I think he was like a very interesting, and there's still a lot of mystery to him. And to me, he was the one that I'm like, I kind of wanted to know more about his background story, and we don't. Like, it just kind of left up in the air. And it's not like he was he was somewhat useful to her, but she just refused to listen to him a lot of the times.
Do you want to put Gratis in context, like when we meet him?
Yeah, so I can't remember when we meet him, so maybe you might want to say, like, I can't remember exactly when we meet him. When do we meet him? I don't remember.
Gratis is someone that we meet in one of the lower courts. I can't remember if it's tyranny or cruelty, but he basically is a shade that introduces Alice to the idea that, like, basically as you get in the lower courts of hell, it is dissertations. So people are writing dissertations on whatever thing that they did that they shouldn't have. So like why they murdered someone or why they whatever. And if they can explain it with true honesty about the why and what they've learned, that's essentially how they move on from this part of hell. And Gratis is sort of like a professor in the context of this that's walking Alice through like a writer's market where all of these like centaurs and things are giving style guides to try and people are looking for any way to try and pass this because they don't get any feedback on their dissertation. They don't know what the advisors are looking for or whatever. And Gratis is someone who's just like, I'm just looking for a reason to like want to even try to do the dissertation. And so he like wants Alice basically to give him a reason to go on to like even try to get out of hell. And so in return, he's like is sort of taking her around and teaching her the ropes.
Yeah. And I think I kind of liked him because he gave me the impression of somebody that he was still trying, even though we can kind of tell that he had been dead for like a very, very, very long time. But he kind of was taking this like actual teacher approach with her. And it wasn't, yes, he wanted something in return, but I think he kind of made those stakes pretty obvious in the beginning.
You did.
So, and I appreciated that, like, especially with like somebody like Grimes or like the Kripkes or some of these other people, everybody's so sneaky about everything. And Gratis to me was one of those that was pretty straightforward with her. I mean, like within the context of academia, there's still some like, they don't really say fully what they're trying to say, but to me, he was the one that was the most honest about stuff with her. So I appreciated that. So I kind of saw him as one of those teachers that you just encounter in your college career that is like trying to give you some advice here and there, and they're not really getting too much out of it, but they're just kind of there to lend you a hand. I don't know. That's kind of how I took him personally.
You're right. I completely agree. And I think that part of the book is the part where I was like, getting emotional, even though that's sort of like ridiculous, but because like you said, like this is later in the book and something happens and Alice is alone. We're not going to go into that because I don't want to completely spoil the book, but she's basically just like, I don't know if I have a reason to keep going anymore. And Gratis has a fellow like professor type person named Gertrude who's like, yeah, let's just rebuild the world down here. And like, there's no reason, like come to us with this little citadel. And Alice starts walking through this garden, which is essentially humans or shades. This is what they call the souls, is shades. who have just given up and are just waiting for something to change. And Alice is sort of like, do I do that? Do I just like give up and stop trying to move forward and like just exist until something changes externally? And it's Gratis who's like, no, you fucking don't.
Yeah,
Like,
don't do that.
Don't do that. And it is this moment in the book where like, I think Alice starts this change of being someone who is like finding her will a little bit again.
I think he is that force. He is that change. I think he kind of helps her a little bit. I think whenever she needed it the most is when he would show up in random ways. One of my favorite quotes that he says, I think they had just finished, they were about to fighting, they had just finished fighting the Crip case or something, and Gratis was like trying to help out, and they were talking about how the conversation like, oh, maybe you'll see the light come through, and Alice tells him, suppose you're rescued by an act of divine grace. And the way that he responds to her is like, don't be a cunt, Alice. And I just love that because it's so like honest. Like, you just like, you know, just like, I'm not holding back and I'm just gonna tell you how it is. But it's also like a playful relationship that they start kind of building together, and I love that.
Yeah, like he's not a good guy, but he's not evil.
Exactly.
Like Grimes is, can we talk about Grimes for a second? Because Grimes is evil. And Alice essentially at the beginning of the book admits that like she thinks that she is responsible for his death because she was sort of negligent in creating this pentagram for him, but he was so lazy he didn't check the work and he explodes. I could talk for 15 hours and expound on the ways that I hate Grimes, but is there particular things that come to mind for you about him?
Let me just tell you the way that he thinks. And there's a quote in here that I think summarizes the type of personality that he has. This is a quote that he was telling Alice back when she was in school, that she needed to find her purpose and why it was important for her to decide why she's there in Cambridge. And she goes, when you have complete mastery of these ideas, when you can hold them in your palm and twist and tease them at will, then you will have stepped closer to God. It will feel meticulous, yes, petty, fleeing, pedantic, but all the more reason to double your drive and clutch every precious wisp of truth you glimpse. That mentality of like, you're gonna be so close to God because you're gonna have all the knowledge at the palm of your hand. It just kind of tells you the way that he sees himself as somebody that can just manipulate and do things to that type of power that you can just, you're God. Like that's pretty much what he's trying to tell her. And to me, I think that was just like, girl, like anytime that you're trying to you're comparing yourself to a God, that's a red flag immediately.
Well, and it's interesting because like if that is his conception of God, then it makes total sense why he's in hell, because he doesn't have original ideas. We know that he steals ideas from his students. We know that he doesn't really care about truth because he lies constantly. We know that he doesn't have mastery over base human instincts because at one point he assaults Alice. And so like, even by his own definition, he's so stupid that he doesn't realize, like, cool, you're not doing any of those things. You have not come closer to the truth at all. You've just manipulated the people around you to, like, do that work for you.
Yes. And it's just, the thing that kind of, it's crazy to me is the level of manipulation to those people around them. They cannot even see how bad it is. Like, at some point, you know, Peter keeps asking Alice, like, well, what kind of like sins or things do you think like Grimes has done? Because like, you know, that's going to potentially kind of help us go into which core we might be able to find him. And she just sees him as like, he's perfect. Like he doesn't think that much of himself. Like he would never, like, I can't think of a single sin that he could potentially do, even though, even in her own recaps, in her own memories, she knows that he's done really shitty things.
It's so interesting because, like, I do think she knows that he's committed sins. I think she just assumes they're the worst ones and that it's like, this is the thing that we struggle with Alice, because she was like, well, it's not pride because she's making excuses everywhere. Like, she's like, it's not desire, even though we know that he's assaulted her. Yeah. She's like, he wouldn't be so base as to care about like someone's body or sex or anything like that, right? And like, but like we know that she knows that he's done all of those things and that she's kind of moving forward toward the worst parts of hell because she's assuming that he's there. And yet every step of the way, you're right, I was getting so frustrated because she was just doing anything and everything to justify his behavior and to like make it seem like, well, that's just a condition of his place in academics.
I'm gonna read you another one. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
no, read all the quotes. I
This
love it.
is
I
the
said
one-
all I want is this podcast for you to just read at me.
Professor Grimes wasn't like those other professors, the toxic ones, the ones who screamed abuses at their lab assistants and called them stupid to their faces, spit flying out of their mouths. After all, what all of those abuses usually boiled down to was insecurity and incompetence, and Professor Grimes was neither. And it's just like, girl, you have issues too.
She is. Yeah, I mean, she's abused. That's it. And it's so like one of the things that you learn through the book is that Grimes has essentially experimented on Alice, which is a true transgression in the truest form. So he basically carves a pentagram into her arm to make her never forget anything. And that has rightfully fucked Alice up. Like, she's barely functioning through her day. But the reason that I bring that up is that I feel like it's a good thing to know that Alice has a memory of everything that's happened to her, of all of the things that Grimes has done to her, including this very disgusting thing. And she still can't trust her memory because of the softness around emotions, and she's not good about interpreting that. So like, even though she can see it, she has evidence in front of her that she can remember, and we know she remembers it perfectly, she still is trying to like figure out if she can trust herself in hating him or loving him or wanting his, affection.
R.F. Kuang talked about this when we went to see her in it, that it is this like admiration hidden under abuse. Like, you're craving that professor's attention,
Right.
because everybody wants him. And it's like, but maybe because he is berating me is because he truly cares and he wants me to be the best person I am, like, that I can potentially be. And that's why like Peter and Alice are just constantly trying to do everything to kind of make him happy. And like, they have this weird competition when they were in school of trying to outdo one or the other, because you're trying to compete. It's like two siblings trying to compete for daddy's attention. It's like what they're doing, because that means that if they praise them, it's like, oh, it's like heaven for them. Like, they're just like, we did it. And they throw like their achievements at each other. So, like Peter won some sort of award thanks to like the professor, and then like Alice was able to go to Italy and it was taken away from Peter. Like, they're just like this I don't want to call them, no, they're like microaggressions towards each other because they're trying to compete for the love and adoration of Professor Grimes. And it's kind of crazy that they know that I don't think they knew that they were getting abused up until some point, but they were just still craving his approval. And it was just like, ugh.
Even at the end, even at the very end, and Alice says this, like, and I don't think we should spoil the end, but she says, like, even at his worst, when the book is about to end, she's like, I still wanted him just to say he was proud of me. And it is such a, like, you're like so upset with her, but also like, I do understand that. I do understand that from like, not an academic relation, but like familial relationships where you're like, this is so bad for me. And yet I keep wanting someone to like apologize or acknowledge or praise or whatever. That felt like such a true human experience and like its core that I just think she wrote that so well.
Yes, I think that was done. Yeah, that was one of the parts that I really loved about this book. It's the level of psychological effects, like, psychosis, I guess, that you go through when you're dealing with this type of situation. I think it's done really well here.
Can I say another moment that like the psychological impacts of just his orbit just like truly mess with my brain, which is her conversation with another professor at Cambridge, Helen Murray. So there's a big topic around feminism that comes up in this book. Alice is not a feminist in any way, shape. She's the worst kind of woman in that she's like, ugh, women who complain about being women are so boring. Mm-hmm. And after Grimes takes advantage of her, she's like obviously extremely upset, and she goes, and like this is after we learn that like all of the women are like, don't be alone with him. That's just like a foregone conclusion in the book. They're like, don't be alone with him. But when he does sort of attack her, I don't know the right way to phrase what he does, but he like assaults her basically. And she goes to Helen to say like, what should I do? And Helen Murray, who is a professor that they refer to as like a marriage hire, basically like a spousal hire. She only got the job because she was married to another magical professor. She was like, what do you want me to do? Like, you didn't want to be a feminist. You didn't want sympathy for being a woman. And then she says at this moment that broke my heart where she was like, would you want to be my advisee if I helped you? And Alice says, no. And she's like, then fuck you. I'm not going to help you. It's just such a weird, I don't know. What did you think of that moment?
I did not feel pity for Alice at all at that moment.
Wow, really?
Because it really rubbed me the wrong way how poorly she talked about the older women in this book. Like she has a history throughout this book of like looking down on like the Charlotte, one of the secretaries, also that she was also kind of potentially like also being abused by the professor, and like you can kind of see her deterioration.
They were dating,
I guess, but like
yeah.
you can kind of see after they broke up and everything, like her deterioration of it, and she just didn't feel anything. She's like, now I want it, like now I want that attention. She also like all of the merit, like the hiring. And it's a terrible thing to me because she's assaulted, but I understand where Helen comes from, because she's like, you're coming for me for help, but like you're still like, I can get you out. And then I know that you've been talking crap about all of us in here, about being the marriage hire, or like the people that are not going to be able to advance their career because they're just going to have to be teaching the intro to some sort of trigonometry class. And Alice was part of that cycle. She was participating in that gossip. She was doing that. And when she needed help, she still didn't like praise Helen at all. She just kind of just like, no, I don't want to be with you. I think she just needed to vent. And I think I understand where they're both coming from, but I didn't really feel bad for Alice because she was just kind of using it to deal with her stuff, which very fair. It's really bad, but I understand where Helen is coming from.
I do, but I also think like you're the professor, like you're the adult in this situation.
That's fair.
So like even though Helen is allowed her feelings, I also think like you can't, when someone is at that critical of a point in their life, you know, like we know that Grimes' grad students have killed themselves before or taken their own lives, you know?
Yeah, we learned that later, yes.
And so... But Helen knows in the context of the story because she was a professor at the time. And so I think knowing that and being like, rather than using this moment to like find compassion in myself and help someone, even if I feel wronged, I'm going to dig into my petty and just not offer them help. Like she had no idea what Alice would do after that moment. And so like, even though she was justified in like kind of trying to teach her a lesson, it bummed me out so hard because I was just like, wow, there's no one in this environment that like can rise above and get out of the like muck of the like petty slights and whatever to like genuinely help someone.
That's fair. You know what? Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're right about that. You changed my mind on that. I think at that moment I just did not feel bad for Alice.
Like Alice
I just didn't feel bad for her.
She has no female friends because she sucks. She doesn't like women. She doesn't like a body. She like talks all the time about how she like hates her body, you know? How she doesn't want a body. It's such an annoying thing. She has to eat and drink and shit and whatever. And it's just like, okay.
But you're right. Like I think from Helen's standpoint, she is older. She should have known better. And I think I was just like, ugh, fuck Alice.
But it also just shows you like how intense that is, because like this is an adult woman who's like slighted and pulled into this mess, even though it's like you have a job. You're like in a okay spot. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Like I think that's just I'm bringing my own, my grudge feelings into this because I can hold a grudge forever. And if I'm in a position like that where like you're being a professor or whatever, you should be able to look out for your students at the very least. So yeah, that's fair.
But Alice makes so many mistakes. I get why you don't like. I relate to some parts of her, and then other parts of her, I'm just like, girl, you just need like a friend. You need like a female friend.
She's very lonely. I think all of the people that we talk about here, everybody's very lonely.
Yeah.
Like every single one of them. From Peter, from Elspeth. I think it's just everybody's just trying to cope with the way that they can in this like very competitive world of academia. And yeah, nobody has friends in here. I think that's one of the things that kind of shocked me, how lonely everybody is.
I am curious how you left the book without spoiling the ending. Like, what was your feeling when you finished it?
I think it took me a little while to I think at the end of this book, one of the most romantic quotes was written that I have ever read. And I think it's not something that R.F. Kuang wrote. I think she's quoting a Greek mythology anthology. And it says, "I wish I were the night so that I might watch you sleep with 1,000 eyes." And that to me, it was that's such a romantic, that's one of the most romantic quotes I have ever read in my life. It's so beautiful. So it gave me a sign of hope for them that hopefully they're going to be changing their ways, that they have learned their lesson, and that potentially they might be able to maybe try to make a little bit of an indent in the cycle of the academia world that they're kind of seeing. And I think they kind of talk about that. So I think in that sense, it gave me a little bit of hope for them. But at the same time, I'm like, damn, you guys really went to hell for nothing. That's kind of how I felt. I mean, I think that they did learn lessons, I think, and I think they grew up a lot. But that's kind of how I felt. Like, it was just like a very heavy feeling of hopefulness, but with like, wow, but was there really a reason for you to do that?
Yeah.
Like, did it really take you to go to hell to learn those lessons? And it's kind of sad.
Maybe my takeaway is exactly the same. I think I feel a cautious hope for them, which is, like, I've said this a million times, but like Alice repeatedly throughout the books talks about how she hates the humanness of herself. She just wants to be a brain that sits, doesn't eat, doesn't do anything, just sits and thinks. And that's her whole goal. And toward the end of the book, she says, like, I miss the messiness of things. I miss sweat and blood and flesh and like grossness, because it like is the thing about humanity that is most lacking in this environment, which is essentially like what she wanted. And I think like that quote that you just said, like it being eyes instead of stars, it's just like a callback to that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if they will change their ways, but I think she has some realizations, hopefully. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they did. And now they have each other. And hopefully, whether it works out between them or not, they're going to come from a place less judgy, because they were very judgmental against each other. Oh my goodness.
I think it's other people. Yeah.
Yeah, they were just this is like high school clique level of petty stuff.
Yeah.
Like that what was going on. And I think it's intentional the way that R.F. Kuang is doing. Because I'm guessing that's what's happening in that world right now. So I get that. So I hope they get better. They have each other and they're a little bit more open eyes when they go into other situations. Is there anything else that you want to chat about? I love the depiction of the devil, Hades, Yamas, whatever it is. And I think this is a very constant in a lot of the literature that I have read and or arts that I have consumed, that the depiction of Yamas in this case is a very fair god. And I think I love that in what is supposed to be considered hell, like a very nasty, gross place, you have somebody in charge that depicts everything as what is fair between this. And I kind of love that notion that it's not just like you're being punished for the sake of being punished or because the gods like love to watch that. It's because I think they're really coming from a place that they're just paying their penance. And I love that she kept that in this book. Like it's that same notion.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and I can't believe we're about to end this without talking about it, because you're right. And she talked about this in the event that we went to too, where like Yama is just someone who, Lord Yama, Hades, whoever, is essentially just someone who wants to, teach people lessons, but also just like be entertained by the messiness of them trying to learn those lessons. And I think she said, like, I like that because as opposed to just depicting heaven, because heaven seems so boring.
Yes, I agree.
Like everyone just living in peace for eternity. Like there are no stakes to anything. Like what is there to do? What is there to like think about or care about if everything is always good?
And I think that's what that rebel city in this was trying to do. They were trying to build their own heaven where they're just like sitting there thinking and waiting and contemplating.
Yeah.
That is that version. They tried to build their own heaven in hell. But yeah, I think, that just seems really boring. That just seems really, really boring.
I think that is like, I'm so glad you brought that point up.
Okay,
so
good.
Smart. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I think that is like, that's the point, right? Like that was his like character is the point of the book. It's the point of like she's trying to get the reader to think about.
Exactly. So yeah. I really love that. And we don't see him that much in the book, but like I love the interactions that we had with him. I think, or them, whatever their pronouns are.
Yeah.
It was really great. That's one of my favorite things.
All right. Should we
That's it.
end it there?
I think we should. It's a lot. It's a very heavy, dense book. I think it's definitely worth the read. So it's just, yeah, I think it's definitely worth the read. I really enjoyed it. And I think after talking to you about it, I think it makes me more excited of like all of the, I don't know, like the imagery and the symbolism that she used throughout this book to kind of compare it to her experience in academia. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really great.
Her books are book club books, and that I think that they like are books that are better when you think about them. They're not books that like, except for Yellowface, which really does like hit you pretty easily and like is not easily, but I mean like it's a more straightforward story and it's like easier to consume. These are like much more dense, and I think it's easier to like appreciate or figure out what you liked or didn't like with a sounding board. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah.
But this was a 5-star for me.
All right.
Yeah. Magda doesn't agree. And that's okay.
Okay. I think for me, it's a 3.5 star. Like this is a book that I would recommend to certain people.
Yeah.
Not one that I'll be like, to everybody go read. Although I think everybody will enjoy this book. It's a very dense book. And I think I'll probably think about this for a while and my rating might increase over time.
That is why I think it's 5 stars for me, because like I would not recommend this book to everyone, because I don't think, I mean, we've seen like online and stuff, there are mixed reviews. Like if you're not,
are?
Kinda, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think you either have to be someone who likes this kind of writing or doesn't like this kind of writing, which is why for me, I think some people are just like not going to vibe with it. But I think it like altered my brain chemistry. I thought a lot about it when I finished it. So that for me is like really hard to do, I think, especially with the amount of books that you and I both have read and read. And this one, like, I will go back to it, I think.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, I'm so happy for you. That's amazing. I probably will not reread this.
That's understandable.
But I took a lot of notes. If I get the itch, I will read my notes.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, thank you for listening to Literally Books, the podcast.
Where we say what we read.
And we mean what we say.
Bye.
Bye.